Many blessings, my loves. My name's Rebecca, and this is my full moon report for Pillars of the Moon. So, how are you all doing? Like, wow, what a crazy eclipse season we are in. It is definitely very, very potent energies, isn't it, that we are all journeying through. So, yeah, I want to just jump on in today because we've got the full moon happening today. Well, it's happening the early hours of tomorrow morning for us in the UK. So, yeah, I'm recording this on the 6th, and the full moon happens in at 4:47 on the 7th for us in the GMT time zone. So that is this evening while we're asleep. Yeah, for us in the UK. So, yeah, it's definitely something that I'm really excited to share about. The full moon astronomically will be in Pisces. Um, and yeah, there's a lot to share. So I just want to, yeah, jump on in with you all. I'm going to start by lighting my astrology candle and yeah, just taking a breath together. Um, And I'm going to call to my good friend, the Great Bear, up in the northern heavens, Ursa Major, and the North Star, Polaris, really aligning to that northern star, the energy that's guiding us, that's looking down upon everything, that guiding energy, and journeying all the way down now to the heavens below and connecting to the Southern Cross, giving thanks to all that's holding above and below. And I'm going to journey over to Pisces, who for us in England is in the east in the spring. So giving thanks to the great fishes, the great ocean, and the vastness here. And journeying over to Virgo, great priestess over in the west for us in the north, giving thanks to all that she brings, all of her wisdom, all of her harvest, giving thanks to the galactic center now over in that portal between Ophiuchus and Sagittarius, a super massive black hole in the center of our Milky Way galaxy, and cascading over the heavens through that Milky Way, that starry light that joins all the way down to Orion's hand over in the silver gate of reincarnation there. So drawing a big circle or an arc of starry light all the way from the galactic center over to Orion's hand so he can catch that starry medicine, and spiraling it all the way below. So just feeling these two arcs of energy coming from Pisces to Virgo, above and below. So creating these two big arcs of starry light, holding this container with us. So we may journey into the cosmos together and receive the wisdom that is most needed for now. And so it is. So I'm going to leave this candle here and let's jump into the sky. So, yeah, let's go and see what's happening on this full moon. So, yeah, I've been having quite a lot coming in that I wanted to share about, and it is multi-dimensional, it's multi-layered. So, yeah, so 4:47 is the time of the full moon for us on the 7th of October. So this is where the moon will be in the live sky. So we use astronomy. I use astronomy for my readings because, yeah, it's in alignment with if I was to have a big telescope and look out there this evening, I would see the Pisces constellation around the moon. So it matches the living sky as it is right now. So that is why I use it. So you're welcome to do that too. If you've got any stargazing apps on your phone, you can do this yourself as well. And yeah, look at the sky as it really is. So this moon in Pisces, wow, look at it. It's really boom in the middle here of Pisces. So what have we got going on? We've got below, we've got Cetus the whale. Yeah, so Cetus the whale is where we have Ceres, the dwarf planet Ceres, you can see here. So Ceres is closely aligned to this full moon. as well as we've got Neptune and Saturn here over in the Pisces constellation, really, really close to each other. And yes, so we are also journeying with, I'm going to write them in because they're quite far out. We've got Eris, dwarf planet Eris over here. So Eris is also in the Cetus constellation. And then we've got Chiron as well in Pisces, up here in the Pisces constellation. So you can see that there's quite a lot of energy, in Pisces at the time of this full moon. So there's a lot happening. It's a really potent time. You can also see that the star, this is in the Pegasus square. So Pegasus is above, you can see here, beautiful Pegasus horse. So this is the Pegasus square, and one of the stars of the Pegasus square. I mean, you could say that this one as well is quite aligned, but you can see that, I'm going to try to say it, Alpheratz is really closely aligned as well. And so this has sparked my attention a lot. So going down below, you've got Deneb Aljanubi, which is the tail of the whale here. So this is a very interesting alignment. So this star that I wanted to talk a little bit about first, which is Alpheratz, is an interesting star because really it is a shared star because it connects to the constellation Andromeda, which is up here. You can see it's really close to the head of Andromeda, and it's also in the navel of the horse or Pegasus. So this star here, I was researching into it as well, and it has been known as exiled star, which means a shared star. And so this star really is about the union of opposites, and it's the union of both the constellation Pegasus and Andromeda. So when you are bringing these two constellations together and what they symbolize, I mean, it's really it's a really powerful place in the sky, because the story of Andromeda, you can see in the picture here where she's upside down, but she was chained, and the intriguing part of it was in the story, and it's a Greek story, that Cetus, the monster, was the one that was attacking or sent to kill Andromeda, and she was rescued by Perseus over here, who's holding Medusa's head. And so there's a whole story around this, but I feel like, I really like, what I really want to journey with is the archetypal medicine or wisdom that comes from exploring this point, between Pegasus and Andromeda, and how it is also aligned to Cetus beneath in that belly of the whale there. So we really need to look at it as a multi-dimensional thing, that it's layered. You've got the above the ecliptic, you have Pegasus flying, and Andromeda is breaking the chains, and it's kind of like breaking free from what she was chained to. It's liberation from an imprisoned fate. The chains are breaking, and then Pegasus is a symbol of the beauty that comes through, because Pegasus was born from the death of Medusa, and it's like this amazing kind of creative divine inspiration of like galloping into higher realms of consciousness. It's like a propulsion of energy, and it's so light, and it's so bright, and it's so like fast and electric, even in the way that it feels. So like this star in particular, Alpheratz, as this symbol of the gateway or the transition of breaking free from what was chained, and this leap forward from Pegasus into a higher consciousness. And so, when we are journeying with the energy as a a trio, when you're thinking like the full moon in Pisces is really the illumination or the mirror of our experience, and the what's beneath it, the primordial mother or the whale energy of Cetus with Ceres, because Ceres is connected to mothering and nurturing and caregiving, so in the whale, in this belly of the whale, it's the primordial mother energy, and so when we're journeying into Ceres as, an archetypal energy, it really is around nourishing ourselves in the depths, tending to, we've also got Eris here, tending to the exiled, mothering the wound, taking care of the grief and the forgotten parts of us, and it's in this, the full illumination of Pisces takes us into this great cosmic mirror, really illuminating all of these hidden depths, all of the parts of us that have been buried and pushed down and exiled, and there's like this forgotten ancestral ocean of wisdom that is really like being explored and expressed through this energy, so when we are connecting to this area in the sky, it really is about diving into the depths, mothering the grief, diving into the pain and that core wound, and finding liberation, with Andromeda from the parts of us that were chained or exiled, and finding the liberation to break free, and then riding on that horse of Pegasus, that flying horse, to divine inspiration, creative liberation, so this is kind of the way that we could feel, when we're really diving deep into this core wounded place, this is really a gateway, this is a bridge between worlds, from the boundary, I can really feel like this energy of the boundary walker, or the psychopomps, that kind of the shaman that bridges between worlds, it feels so multi-dimensional, this energy, and I'm really wanting to spend a little bit of time just exploring Cetus, because, Cetus, has been portrayed by some of the myths as a sea monster, but the original, meaning of Ketos or Cetus is great sea creature. So where the word monster came from, I'll leave that up to you to research. But even the cetacean, sorry, is the word that includes whales, dolphins, and tortoises. So that's got the word ceta in it. So cetus represents, the whale, or the those that are like the whales, the dolphins, the tortoises, and the porpoises, that are contained within the Cetus energy, so I feel like Cetus holds a lot of the keys and the mysteries to origin, the keys of the primordial mysteries that, is the unknowable depths of primordial chaos, and there's so many stars in Cetus that are actually, like the Deneb, what's that? The one that's the tail here, Deneb al Janubi. Where's, I'm just trying to find Mirror, because Mirror is in, I think it's in the throat, isn't it? Yeah, Mirror actually is a star. Mirror means the wonderful. Where's she gone? So why would a monster have a star inside it that means the wonderful, you know? So it's really bizarre, like how I'm going to refresh the screen because it seems to be going a bit funny. So it's funny, I was talking about Cetus and Mirror and the wonderful star. So that Mirror is in the constellation Cetus. And, you know, so I feel like my insights into Cetus is, you know, if we could take it from fear into reverence, you know, from punishment into initiation, and from chaos into cosmic depth, it kind of rewrites the kind of concept of Cetus, you know, as this kind of big monstrous creature into something so powerful that we revere, you know, for its emotional vastness and its primordial depths, just like, you know, the whale is like such a powerful deity, you know, to really be appreciating and reclaiming that, you know. So I feel like this is all in the mix for this full moon. Um, and so you can see today, you know, with this sun in Virgo, I've got all these notes on the screen. So the sun astronomically is still in Virgo, as you can see here on the chart. So I'm just going to highlight that at 19 degrees. And the moon is in Pisces conjoined with Ceres. So yeah, you can see I've already been writing away on it. This is my Virgo-ness in me. I've got my South Node here, so I'm very like, yes, let's make notes. Right, but the funny thing that I really wanted to share around this energy, like for me, what I find is like so Pisces is like the intuition, it's the sensitivity and the ability to channel and oracle and, you know, perceive like the unknown, the unknowable, like tapping into Cetus and the great mysteries beyond the veil. You know, this is the Pisces energy. And then the Virgo energy is like the ordering of the chaos into a system of some kind of, you know, way that we can it's science, I guess, if you think of it that way. So the spirituality is in the Pisces area, and then the sciences or the medicine is kind of in the Virgo energy. So working with these two together, you know, like I find, like for example, I might go in the garden in the evening and I might look up at the moon and say, oh wow, yeah, the moon is with Pluto today. And I might feel it, you know, and I might go, wow, yeah, I can feel that makes sense. And I will get this kind of like inspiration or intuition around where the moon is without looking at anything. And then the science, Virgo comes in and says, I just need to check that on my astronomy software. You know, so this is kind of like the intuition already knows that the moon is with Pluto. And the Virgo energy checks it scientifically and says, yes, that is correct. So this is kind of the interesting, you know, the way that these two work together. And I feel like, you know, with this, you can see I've done in the yellow here, there's this yod happening. Yod is the finger of God or the finger of fate that is pointing towards Virgo and Mercury. You know, so at the top of the yod, you know, we have Uranus who's in Taurus, and you can see I've written, this is bringing radical shifts and changes to resources. And the sextile comes over to Neptune and Saturn over in Pisces. And, you know, this is our dreams, our intuition, the veil. And Saturn here is dissolving the structures around time, and it's all about work and discipline. You know, so these two energies are, you know, at the top of the hand of God, making the sextile together. So, and that is pointing down to Mercury. So there's a lot of pressure on Mercury from, you know, this the upper part of the sky, which I, you know, I've already shared a lot about already with Pisces, Cetus, Andromeda, Pegasus, and then you've got all of the planets here, and obviously you've got Chiron, Eris, Ceres, and the Moon, and obviously Saturn and Neptune and Uranus are all kind of bringing that pressure that's pointing down towards Mercury. You know, so what is the pressure? I feel like it's really about mind altering. You know, it's a crisis of our mind. It's a pressure on Mercury, a pressure on our memory. We could be feeling like headaches, or just like we can't seem to get organized with time. And like Mercury probably really would like to organize and be very specific about, you know, what's happening and all of these things. And so there's a friction on Mercury and a lot of pressure. And the pressure is kind of saying, you know, like there's a new way of thinking that's required, and the new way of thinking, it reflects Uranus and Neptune and Saturn. So radical shifts and changes around structures. And then we've got our North Node in Aquarius. It's like collective consciousness working together for the future. So all of these energies pointing on Mercury, and you can see as well that we've got Black Moon Lilith in Virgo, and then the first degree of Libra, we've got Mars, who's just crossed the border into Libra. So this is about adjustment for Mars, adjusting and compromising this point of balance. So the shadows of Black Moon Lilith as well in Virgo, of this criticizing and being like really finicky and pointing out all the problems and being very perfectionist. That's the shadow of Virgo and Lilith. And then so Mars is kind of now moving into Libra and really needs to compromise, the way that things have been, the actions that Mars has been taking, need to be balanced to reflect, coming back to the hand of God at the top here, to reflect the collective consciousness working together for the future, to really take into account the core wounds, the rejected parts of us, humanity, caregiving, trauma, pain. Uranus is about bringing changes to the resources, and the dreams and intuition that Neptune and Saturn are really wanting to create a new structure, that is collectively working together for the future. So is it any surprise we can see these, this collective coming together to express the wounds and the trauma and the pain of our humanity, and it's being pointed towards, to Mercury, to speak it out, to share the vision, and to really, it feels like the way that, like, Mercury, the pressure on the mind as well can bring a lot of anxiety, a lot of tension, of nervousness, of feeling unsettled, and this is kind of, I feel as well, so with the energy of so we've got Jupiter in Gemini, and we've got Pluto and Pallas Athena together on this cusp of Capricorn, and this opposition is really coming into play. And the last quarter moon, which will be happening next week in Gemini, it's when the grand cross aspect really comes tight, and it's really quite a big week next week. We'll go into that in a minute, but like, I feel like with Pallas Athena conjoined with Pluto here, it's really questioning the integrity of authority and governments and power structures, so the old kind of governance and structures for humanity, Pallas Athena is there to be like, this isn't just, this isn't fair. So with all this energy here, with this Pisces energy really illuminating the pain and the trauma of humanity, it's like she's kind of like standing with Pluto to be like, this isn't just, this isn't fair, this isn't integral, so all of the parts of us as well that feel like there's not equality, where things are not fair, this is where I feel like Jupiter in opposition here is really like illuminating all of this on a social platform. I've definitely been seeing it all over my social platforms of this social network. It's an information overload. There's just so much, and there's also polarization in the theories, polarization in the ideas that we are seeing, and it's really a lot about justice. And I feel like Pallas Athena next to Pluto is really activating that as well, and then Jupiter is expanding it. So we're seeing a collective coming together to want to work together for our future, for humanity, for care and support, and to make radical shifts around the way we're doing things. And this is the sextile coming with Uranus and Neptune and Saturn. Really we're needing to evolve as a collective with our North Node in Aquarius here to really shift the mindset, of Mercury in Virgo, to shift that thought pattern, and also Mars conjoined with Lilith it's the shadow, it's the darkness, it's like that energy of I wrote it down somewhere here. Yeah, dark dominance, like the force of like regiment, force of um force of energy, like Black Moon Lilith in Virgo is saying it has to be this way, it has to be like this. And Mars now is at the point where something has to change, something has to shift. There needs to be a compromise. And so this can bring a lot of overwhelm for Mercury, and because there's a change that's needed, and so ultimately the change is coming from Mercury, and the pressure has to we have to order our thoughts in a different way that responds to this huge wave. It's like a huge downpouring of energy from this area of the sky, from Pisces, from Cetus, from all of this kind of collective trauma and wounds that's pouring down on Mercury, pointing the finger, saying, what are you going to do? How are you going to change your words, your thoughts, to create something that is going to be more collectively conscious, you know? So that is, yeah, the yod formation that I wanted to share a lot about. And I think I've shared enough around that now. I wanted to share just a little bit, before I finish on this chart, to talk about the South Node in Leo with Venus. And, it's been so interesting to watch this, because it's been the last week that the beautiful Jane Goodall has passed away, the anthropologist who worked with the chimpanzees, and she's such a beautiful human, and so I really could feel like this completion of a cycle of her heart-centered leadership as a feminine, working with animals, and I feel like this is kind of there is completions happening with the South Node around the feminine, and things coming to a culmination, and so yeah, when I saw her passing, and I realized that the South Node is with Venus, I was like, oh, of course, the endings of old cycles. I feel like she's such a generous and open-hearted human, so and as well, something else significant has happened. In the last week, we had the first female Archbishop of Canterbury. Oh, what's her name? Sarah something, or I can't remember her last name now. It's Sarah. She's Dame Sarah. She's the first female Archbishop of Canterbury. And so it's interesting, like there's this kind of leadership, Leo of, the past, and the feminine is coming in. Like, and she's kind of like, it's very interesting because she is meeting with a lot of challenges already within the church and within the institution around, what is a female doing in this position, and it's not happened before, so she's coming in and she's aware that she's going to shake things up, so it's just interesting the timing of that, because with this kind of South Node and Venus together, and also in opposition to the North Node in Aquarius, and you've got Saturn and Neptune up there as well, and this kind of dissolving of religion and spiritualities, structures around that, and then Venus is coming in and bringing in this kind of like a feminine, heart-centered leader, within that institution to hopefully move more towards the North Node in Aquarius. So these are just things that I've noticed over the past week on the build up to this full moon. So yeah, I'm hoping that this all brings kind of things up to your attention that you may, really feel valuable. I wanted to share as well, that the core wounds and the traumas that we are experiencing collectively, and the way that Jupiter's making, we're seeing it so big, it's like it's huge, the amount of injustice that is being witnessed, and also the way that, the North Node in Aquarius, it's the people coming together to really, stand up to injustice in a really radical way, So I feel like it's really powerful to be a witness to these times, because these are times that, you know, are bringing huge shifts within our world. These are times that will be documented for years and years to come. And we're living in that. We are part of this change. And wow, what a powerful time it is to be alive right now, right? So, yeah. So I just wanted to say as well, like, as we are, probably experiencing, really kind of deep and emotional depths within ourselves, to really, at this full moon, to tune in with CERES, to connect to the mother within, and really mother our own self, mother our own wounds, and tend to the grief, and really tend to the exiled parts of ourselves. And the Ceres energy wants to nourish, so this could be a really great time to do what we can for ourselves and for our community to bring an essence of caregiving and nourishment, to our own selves, to our own families, to our own communities, and really share that support and care for ourselves and for each other, and really ripple that out, to the whole of humanity. I feel like when I'm working with the Ceres energy, it's really talking to, the way that we care, in the grief for those deepest wounded parts, and really bringing a sense of intimacy and welcomeness to all that was exiled, to all that has been rejected and forgotten, to really welcome that into our heart, and all of the emotions and the tears that, the Pisces energy can bring. And I know this. I have a lot of Pisces in my chart, so this is, a lot of this full moon is touching on places for me too that are very deep and emotional. And so I have found, that it's by really welcoming in those exiled, grief-stricken places that, so much liberation can come, and inspiration through, really caregiving the trauma and the pain. And I feel like this, for me, with Saturn and Neptune together, is the greatest work of now, to find a discipline to take care, find a discipline and a structure around support. That could be calling in more support for ourselves, calling in more caregiving for ourselves. What can we do to bring in more support for ourselves and others? How can we create a structure or a routine that is supportive? So it could be that, we could create a new routine or a new rhythm within our daily practice that creates a feeling of more care and support for ourselves. It could be something as simple as, having a cup of tea in the afternoon with no distractions, no phone, just really using the herbs as well. This is where Virgo comes in, with the herbs and the plants, to, regulate our nervous system, because our nervous system may feel a bit spangled with all these energies, so I really love using herbs, like lemon balm and skullcap and vervain, and oat straw, to really regulate my nervous system, to help me calm. And so using the energy of Virgo and Pisces in this way, it's like, when we feel emotional, when we feel the trauma and the pain and the heaviness, that we can take space to really mother ourselves in that, and to really, to not be afraid of that, that actually, that expressing the emotion really is a gateway to liberation. I've found as well recently, like through a few experiences, certain people have walked into my life recently, and when they've come in, I've literally cried. And it's the happy tears, and it was like, wow, this is like a cosmic water release of like alignment. And like when we are connecting to the water in that way, in the Maori, like water means spirit, and so when we're connecting to the Pisces energy and the waters and our tears and our grief, we are connecting to the spirit that is woven between it all, like, so from all the parts that were separated and broken apart, and all of the brokenness, like there's a way through the tears and through the grief that we can connect to the waters that connect everything. When you think about the ocean, it connects all of the land, all of the earth, all of the waters, is what connects everything. So if we can really connect to our emotions as a sacred bridge between the mystical and the mundane, it really is our gateway to liberation, to breaking the chains, of the imprisoned fate, to reconnect us back together with each other and with Source. So, yeah. Before I go, I just want to talk about the last quarter moon in Gemini. So, this is on the 13th of the 10th. You can see I've done the big red cross. This is the grand cross. So the sun has come into square with Pluto, into square with the moon and Jupiter, and Black Moon Lilith is also with the sun, and all in square to Chiron and Eris. So yeah, this is next week. This is quite a testing energy for the last week of our cycle, and also I think the day after this, or a couple of days after this, Pluto will be stationing direct as well to come out of retrograde. So, this last kind of week of this cycle could be quite challenging. It could bring up a lot. We could see a lot of things coming up to the surface, especially in regards to the shadows, Black Moon Lilith, and in challenge to Pluto and in challenge to Jupiter. This is big stuff around power and justice coming up to the surface. And then the wounds of Eris and Chiron here. I mean, full on. So, yeah. So that's next week. So what can we do at the time of this full moon to prepare us for next week? Nourish, 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 regulate, calm, ground, do as much as we can to, in our household, we have this kind of code for what brings me more green. We have this spectrum of like emotions, and green is calm. So when we're in the green, we feel relaxed, we feel calm, we feel regulated. And obviously when you start to get triggered and you go up into the orange, you can do things before you get to the red and you explode that will bring you back down to the green. So if we're starting to feel orange, if we're starting to feel the fizziness of all of these, these triggers and these eruptions that we may be feeling, what can we do? What tools do we have to bring us back to green? So we have in our home, we have safe places where we can go and be on our own. We have, my children have specific toys that they find really regulating for them. I mean, I just love to go in my garden. I put my hands in the soil and do a bit of tending to my garden. And my husband likes to go and carve wood. He's a wood carver. So we all have our things that can help us to regulate and bring us back to green again. So I guess like the mother in me of CERES says at the time of this full moon, to really, what is it that brings us back to green? What are our tools? It could be doing some yoga, going for a walk, breathing exercises, drinking specific herbs that we might find helpful for us, having some acupuncture. What is it when we're feeling really fizzy that we can do for ourselves to help us to come back to green? And then once we're in the green, to create that container of support, of friendship, of holding, that we can, also be there for one another as we are going through these huge, huge cycles of change. So I'm just wanting to send out all my love and my blessings to you all for this full moon, and to really do what we can to nourish. The focus really is about nourish, because if we're in our depths, if we're in the grief, we can really tend to that, and the tending comes through nourishment, through care and support and love. So really, really saying yes to receive that which we need, to open the gates, to release the chains, and to allow ourselves to, support one another, support ourselves, to ground, to stay connected to the earth, to our breath, to one another, to our hearts, and to really be witness to this incredible moment for us as a collective, where we remember our togetherness, where we come back together again as humanity, as village, as tribe, to heal these great wounds and these great shadows that we are bringing back into love. So many blessings, my loves. I'll leave it there. And I'll see you all at the new moon. So much love.